Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Power ISAs with Lab Code Agents here. We got Gus Muñoz, and we are going to discover the top 3 game-changing strategies to generate sellers as soon as possible, especially in today's market. That's going to be something you guys are going to want to hear. Don't miss this opportunity here to unlock some powerful insights with Gus and his presentation he's got going. And we're here to elevate your seller leads game. So get ready, guys, buckle in. As we get going, let us know where you're from, drop it in the chat. And throughout this presentation, feel free to ask any questions you have in the chat as well. Drop them here. We'll be here to answer them, and Gus will answer them as live on the call as well. So kick it off, Gus, handing it over to you.
All right, awesome. Welcome, everybody. We got an action-packed webinar today. A lot of content, I'm going to do my best to do about 15 minutes per strategy. That's the game plan, right? Might go well, might not. I'm going to do my best. However, if you want, don't spend any time taking notes, taking screenshots. You can have the slide deck for today. I'll mention the instructions at the end. I got a little special offer for you guys. I'll give away the slide deck for free. Spend time listening to the content, asking your questions. That's the huge advantage of being here live. For the folks watching on the recording, you missed it, but you still get some pretty good content, and you can still get the slide deck if you follow the instructions at the end. All right, are you ready to go or what?
Yes, let's do this.
Awesome, that's great. And we got a lot of people. Miami, Manhattan Beach, San Diego County. Hey, it's my neck of the woods. Born and raised in TJ, only down the I-5 from San Diego.
I thought when I saw the ones from Colorado. I saw
Yeah.
Colorado, Florida. Thanks for all joining us, and hope you guys are all safe out there, especially from that hurricane.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody stay safe in Florida. All right, here we go, folks. Let's jump right into it. So here's the quick agenda for today, right? We're going to talk about really quickly about why this topic is so relevant, current state of the market. We're going to talk about the top 3 ways. And here's a spoiler. We're talking about database, your own database prospecting. We're talking about outbound cold calling prospecting, and we're going to talk about the online lead generation piece. But you're here because this is a really relevant topic, because that's where the current state of the market is. And I'm going to be sharing strategies that are working right now, summer of 2023, not 6 months ago, not a year ago, because the market has really shifted. In case you haven't noticed, you've been living under a rock, the last year. We're in a completely different market than we were a year ago, okay? In most of the country, pretty crazy. So let's jump into it right now. So this is actually, I need to revise this because this came from Zillow and CoreLogic. Zillow is now predicting next year prices are going to go up even higher than 4%, right? We're going to see over 6% appreciation nationally because of the situation we're living in right now. Everyone assumed that within this, again, let's go back to a year. It wasn't this long ago. In September of 2022, interest rates went past 7% for the first time in 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, whatever it was, right? And we were like shocked, right? Holy cow. It went from the low 3s in January of 2022 to the low 7s in September of 2022. It was kind of shocking. The whole market kind of stopped. It was a lot of uncertainty. We all assumed, I'm going to include myself in that assumption, that this is going to stop the market in its tracks. We were going to see a wave of more inventory, and it was going to put a lot of pressure on prices to go down. Okay. Well, guess what? That didn't happen. Hasn't happened yet. And it's not looking like it's going to happen anytime soon because there's less inventory than we've ever seen the last 3 months. For it to be like this, the peak summer, spring season in the US, we're seeing way less inventory than we normally would see because of a lot of factors, but that's the reality. And because there's less inventory, even with interest rates hovering between 7 to 8%, that's where they are right now, we're seeing prices go up. And I think no one was predicting that. I certainly wasn't. So I'm tossing away my crystal ball, and I'm just showing you guys what's happening right now. This is not a prediction. This has already occurred. This is happening in the market of today. This is from Fortune magazine. Out of 100 markets that they track, okay? One market had decreasing home values in May, okay? So between April and May, month to month, one market, Little Austin, Texas, sorry, Austin, right? A little bit of a tough market there. But everywhere else, we saw prices start to increase April to May. In some markets, it started all the way back in March. March to April, April to May, May to June, June to July. Last month, July 2023, the whole country saw prices rise month over month. That had not happened in over a year, guys. Okay. So we're in a really strange situation. Okay. This is what we're seeing. Listings are down in 99% of the country. Okay. Out of 200 metros that realtor.com made this survey of, 2 metro areas had more inventory than they had a year ago. Okay. And that's probably Austin and another market like that. Everywhere else, we are down. New listings are down. We need to generate more inventory. To give you some perspective, this is a timeline down here, okay? This is from the Fed. This is active listing inventory for the country, okay? The gray bar is the pandemic period, okay? This is through like March, through that initial lockdown period, pandemic phase, okay? This is where we are with inventory right now. This is a couple months ago, but the point still stands. We are not even at half of the inventory that we had in the spring of 2020, okay? The spring of 2020, we're not even half there yet, okay? That is a reality. Inventory took a dive after the pandemic and still hasn't fully recovered, even with higher interest rates. Pretty crazy. Okay, all of that to say, guys, all of that to say that we need to generate more inventory for the market. We need to do it, okay? It is harder now than it was in the pandemic years. Yeah, tell me about it, right? It is, absolutely. It was a lot easier to get homes sold with 2% interest rates, 3% interest rates, absolutely, right? But homes are still being sold when interest rates are hovering between 7 to 8%. Our challenge is, how do we find them? How do we find those folks that are motivated enough to sell, even in an uncertain market like this? Let's jump into it. Here's option number 1, okay? I'm gonna go deep on this one. Option number 1, your own personal database. Now, this might be a little surprising because I'm the ISA guy, I'm the outbound prospecting guy, I'm the Facebook lead generation guy, but I'm gonna tell you, I built my business with database, okay? My personal sphere. Friends, family, anyone that knew who I was, if I called or texted them, was in my personal database, and I was able to sell 25 to 30 homes a year for 3 years straight. This is before I discovered ISA, before I did anything else. I only sold homes from my personal database. And I love to do this experiment within Lab Coat Agents. Every few months, I ask people, just like this, like Erica did, where did you get your last listing from? Okay. And those posts get 100, 200, 300 comments. And I look, and I'm not joking, I look through every single response because I love to spot interesting responses. Usually 80 to 90% of people that respond to this question say that their biggest source of their last listing was their database, okay? Friends, family, past client, sphere, all of those things. So that's why this is number 1, because even right now, 2023, summer 23, it continues to be the number 1 source of business. And most agents, and now, I'd love to see, if you feel that you properly market to your database year in and year out, drop a 1 in the chat. And I'd love to see how many 1s we see, right? Do you regularly market to your own sphere, your own database? Drop a 1 in the chat. And I'm not seeing a lot of 1s yet. I don't know. There's like 70 people on this. We got 1. Okay, there we go. Not bad. Not bad. I got 1 person. Not bad. That's great. Not bad. Two, maybe 2. Okay, that's not bad. It's not bad. So for most agents, this is tough. This is a struggle. Okay. So why your database? It is your most valuable business asset. Okay. It can be the engine that drives your business if and only if you market to it effectively. Okay. Your database is a lot more than just your contact list. It is a record of all your relationships. It can be business relationships. And here's the kicker, guys. It is always the highest ROI activity of any lead generation activity. Any lead generation activity. That's why if you guys are new agents, or you were new agents at some point, that's why your brokerage probably drilled into you that you had to make your database, had to call your database. Maybe one of you paid attention, the people that answered here right now, but most people don't do this, right? Because it's kind of a drag. It's not that easy. People want to try something else. Let me post on social. Let me do this. Let me do that. Something different. However, they're ignoring probably the highest and most valuable business asset that they've got, okay? So check this out. Now, why is this the highest converting, highest ROI lead source? Because most of the people in that list already know, like, and trust you. And I'm talking about friends, family, past clients. So this is a great story. I have a client that hired Power ISA. We're helping them with their ISA, outbound prospecting, Facebook lead generation, the whole bit. And when I had I had a one-on-one coaching session with them, and they're struggling to find listings, like everyone is right now, right? And they're getting an ISA ready, they're getting everything ready. And when they told me that they had lived in their city for over a decade now, and they had never once called their database, I said, stop everything, right? I said, don't, like, stop, right? This is, if you have never, they have never marketed to the database, not even one time. And their biggest source of business was referral and recommendation. So this agent was so good that they would get business every year from referral and recommendation, but they had never asked their database to send them referrals, okay? So if that sounds familiar, then you need to stop everything you're doing and do this first, because this is a very simple activity to do. Takes a little bit of work, and then you're done. You don't do this every day, okay? You don't market to your database every single day. I'm going to tell you how to do that really quickly right now, okay? But this agent, we stopped everything. She got down and said, well, I don't know how many people have in my database. I'm not sure. So she took her a week to do this. And she got down almost 400 people's name, email, address, phone number, okay? Almost 400 people that if she called, texted, or emailed, they'd know who she was. That was the definition we used. And to be really honest with you guys, I think she went low. Okay? Like almost 100 of those were just past clients, period. And then other friends, family, coworkers, etc., PTA parents, volleyball parents, everything. So that's where she's getting started. I was able to make about $700, almost $800,000 from a list of 200 people over 3 years, okay? She's starting with 400 people, of which almost 100 are past clients. I don't want to tell you what the potential for a database like that is, okay? So that is the power of properly creating and marketing to your database, okay? Now, you probably already have the contact information for most of these folks, friends, family, past clients. The biggest problem is they're not properly marketed to, okay? That's really it. People think that if they post on social, or if they call them once in the blue moon, or they email them, that that's enough. And it's not enough, folks. You should get 10 to 15% referrals every year from your database. I started with a list of 200 people. Like clockwork, I would get 25 to 30 referrals from that list of 200 people every year, because it was properly marketed, okay? And I'm going to go talk about that right now.
That's so true. That's a great thing there. I mean, Tristan, with Lab Code Agents, always talks about that, to do the, a simple LCM, like, comment, message. Anybody that you have on
100%.
your following with, like their post, comment on their post, then send them a message right after. And then you'll start to work the algorithm as well. But this way you're staying on top of their mind, you're showing interest, and it's not necessarily real estate specific, but at least that way, if they are ready for real estate, you're already in their mind.
100%. And you took the word right out of my mouth, Trenton, because that's what I'm talking about right now. Now, when you start with a database, I would not let anyone start with less than 200 people, because if I created 200 people, but I was relatively new to the US. I was born and raised in Mexico, studied in Mexico. I grew up on the border, which is why I talk like a Californian, but I grew up in Mexico. So I moved to Seattle, and within about 6-7 years, I gotten a list of 200 people that knew, liked, and trusted me. If you're born and raised in this country and English is like your first language, I don't accept any excuse. You should have at least 200 people that if you call, text, email them, DM them, like, they would know who you were. Okay, so no excuses there. And actually, I got one of my teammates from Costa Rica. She had been in the country for less than 5 years. I think it was like 3 or 4 years. And she had a list of 200 people. Okay, it was like come on, right? You can do this. You want to get their complete contact information, or as much as you can, at least email, but phone is the best. Phone is by far the best. And you want to get them on a multi-touch program. Keller Williams called this 33 touch. You can call it whatever you want, right? I'll go into what those details are, but I want you to invite them to 4 client events per year, okay? And I'll get into what that means, but 4 client events per year. It's the most important activity, but not the only one. Trenton just mentioned another one. Regular social media touches. You should, once you get everyone's email from your database, you can friend them on social. And I don't care what network you like. It's Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. I don't know. Who cares? But interact with them on the platform that you're native to. Okay. If you're I'm more of a Facebook guy. I'm older. Okay. I'm 42. Facebook is my jam. I never really got into Instagram. That's what I use to stay in touch with everybody. Okay. Yours might be TikTok. Yours might be whatever the new flavor of the month is, right? Doesn't really matter. But interact with your audience wherever they are. Okay. If you skew younger, probably going to be on TikTok. If you skew older, like me, 40s and above, everybody and my mom and my dad's on Facebook. He's almost 80 years old. He is active, fighting with everybody like all the old people are on Facebook, right? That's what they do. That's fine. Know your audience and know where they are and interact with them there, okay? Now, here's the big thing. It's the client events, okay? This is the referral generating, my biggest referral generating activity, always, okay? You've got a lot of options. You might be rolling your eyes. What do you mean client event? I've never done one of those. Folks, for my client that I'm coaching this through, she's going to do a virtual class, right? On navigating the crazy market that's happening in her area, okay? That's the event. That's it. That's all you need. This was before I love doing classes early on for my client events, because as you can see, I like talking, out of my elbows. So that's my thing. But if you like, just interacting with people, chit-chatting, you can do an ice cream social. I did that once too. I just grabbed the conference room in my office and got a few tubs of ice cream. Didn't really matter. I did a movie night. I was living in a complex that had like a little movie theater you could rent out. I got that, popped in a DVD, got a bunch of popcorn. That was a movie night. Once I had more budget, right? I had a lot of closings under my belt. I did drinks, snacks at a local restaurant. That was a huge event. I did a big picnic in the park. I rented out a skating rink one time and just did food and drinks for my database. That was it. Your events can get bigger and bigger. But the point is this, whether it's an in-person or virtual class or renting out Gus's skate rink, right, for the afternoon, it doesn't matter, okay? That's what I want you to take away from this topic. It doesn't matter. It just has to be something interesting, appealing to your audience. It doesn't matter, right? What matters is this, inviting them to the event, making that special touch, okay? Making that special touch. You give them something valuable, whatever your client event happens to be, and then you make the ask, all right? That is the referral generating activity. Coming from contribution, adding some value. Hey, Trenton, it's Gus, with ABC Realty. Hey, just want to say hi. I hope everything's going great. I wanted to invite you, Trenton, to my new class on how to navigate this crazy market in San Diego that we're seeing the last 6 months. I would love for you to attend. Can you make it, Trenton? Doesn't matter what Trenton says, actually, right? Because the next thing I'm going to do is, Trenton, thank you so much for thinking about that. I appreciate you. I have a quick question for you. As always, I want your help. I want to ask for your help in building my business, Trenton. I would love for you to let me know if you know anyone that might be thinking of doing something in real estate so they can attend this class. Trenton, can you think of one person that you think could benefit from this class because they're going to do something in real estate in the next 6 to 12 months? Who can you think about, right?
I think
Sit
that's
back
great.
and shut up. That's
So
it.
for these events you were just talking about, whether it be a local thing in a park, you have holidays coming up. That could be a great Halloween thing. You maybe host a little pumpkin carving contest. Maybe you host a little movie night, like you mentioned.
I did a pie giveaway. I once did a pie giveaway from my database. 40 people said they would come pick up a pie. I think maybe a dozen actually showed up. I'll be really honest with you. And people were like, "Oh, Gus, you must be so sad because no one came for your pies." I had a conference room with almost 30 leftover pies. I'm like, I'm going to make $30,000 from calling my database this week, right? I was not sad at all. I was like the happiest pie hoarding person ever because I knew that the value wasn't in those pies. It didn't matter to me whether I actually ended up giving away to the office the leftover pies, but it just did not matter. And I thought it was kind of funny. People thought I was thought I was a failure of an event. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I got a dozen referrals from calling my database that week.
That's
Thanksgiving week, right? So folks, this works, 100% works. The only difference from doing this activity a year and a half ago, right? When interest rates were at 2% and the market was hotter, the only difference is that you have to make more calls to get that one referral. That is the only difference, because this 100% works. Here's a sample script. I'm going to blow past this a little bit more. You guys can check this out in the recording and in the slide deck if you want it. This has a sample script that I used to do this activity that I recommend my clients use. And if you happen to have a larger database, here's one example. You don't need an ISA to do this activity, but I want to share one example. This is a case study from Rodolfo out in Seattle. So Rodolfo is one of those guys that had a personal Met database of almost 10,000 people, okay? And I'm not joking. This is guy personally knew almost and had their contact information, email, phone number, address in some cases, okay? Of almost, so thousands of people in his database. He had, for obvious reasons, just the scale of it, he had never called his database, like never even called through it beginning to end. He knew so many people. He's one of those guys where you go to a restaurant with him and he's saying hi to 3 people before he sits down in his table. He's one of those guys. So he had hired an ISA to call through his database, and he got 55 appointments within the first 60 days. And most of those were listing appointments because Rodolfo only did listings, okay? So that is the power of actually marketing your database and asking for the business. Not just, you can get referrals all time of the year, and they always flow at unpredictable times. That's true. But if you never ask, you never train your audience, your sphere, your database on how to give you referrals, and that you would love referrals from them, you're never going to make a lot of progress. Okay, great. I'm going to jump into option number 2. Okay, that's option number 1, and I recommend everyone needs to start there. Guys, this is, if you, like my client right now, built her database in a week. She already has a date for her virtual event. It's September 13th, and she's making the calls this week to invite people to that event. Okay, before the week is done, before Labor Day, she's going to have some hot referral leads. Okay, buyers and sellers, or both. Okay, so who could use some of those right now? Do this activity and it's going to happen. Okay, it's just going to work 100%. And especially if you've never done it before, right? People always get, oh, Jesse, my client told me this, but what if, I haven't called them in so long? Like, folks, that is not a real objection. Okay, no one's ever going to go, oh my goodness, Trenton, how could you not have called me for 5 years and call me now? Oh my God. That never happens, right? It just never happens. You're going to be surprised. The hardest part of making those calls is getting started, because once you actually have these conversations with people you already know, like, and trust you, that is actually a pretty good experience. People don't believe this though, right? It's hard to get started. It's hard. It's not easy to do. But once you're done, like, man, that was way easier than I thought. And I had some really good conversations. I caught up with some people and I provided value to them, right? I gave them something valuable. Some of them are going to take me up. Most won't, which is fine, right? And you're going to get some referrals out of it as well. Okay. Anyways, enough said. The next one.
Before you jump into prospecting, for all those events that you're having, and I know you mentioned kind of in the script about you're talking about asking for referrals. At these events, how much are you talking about real estate? Is that your focus? Is that just kind of in the back burner? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, great question. So early on, I did classes. It was a first-time homebuyer class. It was an investing class. It was like how to get your home ready to list class. So I did a lot of real estate. All my classes were always real estate focused. Once I got further into it, and I didn't need to do that so much, I did more social events, right? Because people like those more. You could get 5 to 10 people into a class. I got 30, 40 people into like some more social events. So I just grew into that more. But again, remember, don't get lost with that, right? The size, the budget, the quality of the event. Well, quality matters. Everything else doesn't really matter. Okay. The size and the budget does not matter almost at all, as long as it's something useful for your audience, right? I had one of my clients tell me that they would do, it was a retirement planning session, a free retirement planning seminar, a free, the estate planning seminar. They would do they had a lot of, their sphere was a lot of lawyers. So they would do free classes on how to prepare legal stuff, right? A free consultation for everyone, a group consultation. I thought that was pretty cool. Once you get into it, you can't stop. There's a lot of ways to talk to your database, add value, and adding value made that phone weigh 10,000 pounds less to me than just calling, asking for the business. A lot of agents do that. Respect. I could never do that, right? I had to go value first and then make the ask. All right, cool. Let's jump into it. Prospecting, cold calling. What does this mean? It is the second most profitable way to generate leads, okay, for real estate. The second most, because database, no one's going to be database, okay? It also has some of the most highest converting lead sources for cold calling, which is called expired and FISBO withdrawals. Those are the ones that get you the highest conversions. They're not the only ones though, okay? They're not, I'm gonna talk about other ones, not just these, but these are the highest converting. And it is much more scalable than calling your database. Why? It is hard to double your database in a year. It's damn near impossible, okay? But if I want to get more sellers from cold calling, I can double the amount of calls I make from one year to the next. That's not that hard to do. I either double my time, I get someone on my team to help me make these calls, or I hire an ISA to help me make the calls. Okay. So it's very, very scalable, much more so than database. All right. Let's jump into it. So, I mean, why prospect? Here's a real example. Here's a sample of someone that shared their numbers for us. You can check this out. 400 hours prospected. This is year to date. This is January through July. This is not August. January through July. 11 signed listings from cold calling. Okay. In 6 months, 11 signed listings, 8 pending, 6 sold already. Okay. Now, this is just from calling. I think it was calling. I'd have to do the math, but it was like, it's less than an hour a day. Less than an hour a day. Okay. This is less than an hour a day, calling January through July and getting 11 signed listings. Could you use 11 signed? Would you put an hour a day if it got you a listing? 2 listings a month, basically, for this agent. 2 new listings he didn't have before. 2 new listings every single month. And guess what? These results compound over time, okay? These results compound over time. If he keeps this up, by this time next year, it'll be 3 and 4 new listings every single month, because I'll talk about this too. Those leads need to be nurtured. They need to be followed up with. And a lot of them are going to be converting later, okay? That's just part of the game, all right? All right, so I know what people are saying. I know what you're thinking. Oh my goodness, expired and FISBO, not again. Like, well, they're not the only lead sources to call. Okay, right? You're not the only lead sources to call. But I will tell you this. Okay, remember what I said at the beginning of this presentation. There's a lot of pressure on prices right now. Okay, a lot of the older expireds, withdrawals and canceled from the last 12 months. A lot of them have one thing in common. They all regret not selling sooner. Man, I should have sold before June of last year. Damn it. They're all feeling that. It's not a good feeling, folks. They hate that, right? They hate life. They might hate you, right? Because you're a real estate agent. Why did you sell my home? So they're just angry that they missed the boat. It's a very common feeling among all these potential sellers. I'm talking about the expired, withdrawals, older ones. If you call them right now, like call them today, call them tomorrow morning, and talk to them, you will be surprised how many have no idea prices are up, right? That we're seeing 90 days, 120 days of positive price movement in most markets. My clients that are doing this right now are telling me, Gus, you're absolutely right. Holy cow. These are good expired calls. Some of my clients gave up calling expired January of this year because there was a lot more expireds. Don't get me wrong, there was a ton. The market was also going down, 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 and down, right? And they're like, oh my God, this is going to be, there's no one inside. I'm going to hold off on the expires for a bit. They're just too crazy. They're just too mad. They're too upset. They feel they missed the boat. Calling them now, you're giving them good news. You're giving them really good news, right? Imagine making a call. You or your ISA making this call saying, hey, Mr. Seller, just want to ask you, right? If you found a good offer, better than what you thought you could get for your property, would you still be interested in selling? I'm just curious about that, okay? But that's what most agents have their ISAs asking every day. It's a very simple question. You get a great offer, better than what you expected last time. Would you still sell? Is there still motivation there? It becomes a motivation game with these leads. Expired, FISBO, withdrawn, canceled. It's all a motivation game. If there's any motivation, they should be talking to the agent, right? Let's see what we can do to get this done. Let's get them an updated CMA. Let's see what we can do to get them to where they want to go. They still want to go where they want to go. They just weren't able to sell it last year because the market went down for about 6-7 months and then is going sideways in some areas and is going up in most of the country right now. Okay. It is much easier to make these calls now than it was a year ago. 6 months ago, not even a year, 6 months ago. Okay. Very different market we're seeing, and there's some goodness in this market. This is one of the good things, okay? How to get started making calls. I mean, the data, RedX is great. There's an LCA, they're an LCA sponsor. There's a great deal for them if you sign up with RedX. Vulcan 7 is great. The share group for absentee owners is excellent. Even Mojo can sell you some of this data built in with the dialer. When it comes to dialing, right? If you're doing circle prospecting, I'm going to talk about that in a sec. Mojo or call tools are like a must. You have to have a higher powered dialer than that. For everything else, you can use RingCentral, or you can use a dialer that comes with RedX, Vulcan, and Mojo, right? That's fine. But for everything else, doesn't matter. For circle prospecting, you need a much more powerful dialer, something like Mojo or call tools. Okay, you need some scripts, and you need to optimize this and tune it a little bit to get the right amount of dials on a daily basis. Okay, so jumping right into it. This is an important moment to mention ISA, because there's one way that an ISA can help you with outbound prospecting. You can do this 100% on your own. You can do this, and most agents do this. They do it 100% on their own. But an ISA can be helpful in these specific scenarios, okay? I call this, actually, I didn't make up this. Coach John D. Smith, Coach Brandon Mulrennan came up with this model, calling it shaking the tree, okay? When they have an ISA, Brandon and John, when they have an ISA making calls, they're not shooting for appointments. And I know that sounds weird for some people. What do you mean cold calling, not shooting for the appointment? They're not, right? The job of an ISA in a cold calling campaign is to generate a qualified seller. That's the goal, okay? Confirmed homeowner with a desire to sell, an interest to sell, motivation to sell their home. That is the highest and best use of your ISA, okay? Having them call the 200 FSBO, the 200 expired listings from last year, the 200 withdrawals, and finding the ones that are still interested in selling if the right thing can happen, okay? Then your job is to take that qualified seller lead, have a real conversation with them, re-qualify them, and turn them into a listing appointment and a listing opportunity. This model I've seen be the most successful. When an agent hires an ISA, expecting the ISA to get them a bunch of listing appointments with expired sellers, and the agent having no interaction with them until like they come list me, that's not going to work, okay? It's not a successful model. This model can be a very successful model where the ISA is just generating as many qualified sellers, hand raisers, as possible on a daily basis, and the agent or the agents are picking it up from there, having that conversation and taking them to the finish line. This is a really successful model. Here's where I've seen it work the best. Old expired, old canceled, and even some for sale by owner. Now, you want to change your mindset and have the ISA shake the tree, okay? They're calling, they're texting, they're leaving a voicemail. Are you still accepting offers on 123 Main Street, okay? This is really important. You just want to make sure you focus on their motivation, on their time frame. Is there still a desire to sell? If there is, the next conversation should be with the agent. That's it. The ISA just needs to get their information, tell them you're going to be in touch with them, and put them in the list. That is a qualified seller, okay? Another option here is absentee owners. These are also known as for rent by owners, still a very underutilized opportunity, okay? Call, texting, and emailing. Tell them the good news. Clarify. This is important for absentees. They're not heavily marketed by agents. Very few agents call these, okay? But investors call them a lot, okay? Because a lot of absentee owners have sold properties in the last few years because of the moratoriums, because of the pandemic, because of COVID. A lot of people have let go of their properties. So investors are trying to capitalize on that. Clarify, you're not an investor. You want them to get highest and best value for their property, which is not what an investor wants them to get, okay? Really important there. And then last but not least, circle prospecting. Folks, I've seen this last week, the last 7 days, I've seen agents start their ISAs on circle prospecting campaigns, and they get a qualified seller lead on the first day, within the first few hours, okay? That is how underutilized this lead source is in so many markets, all right? This takes longer. This is a more intensity kind of activity because you're calling the phone book, trying to find people that will raise their hand out of the phone book. It just takes more conversations to get a qualified seller out of here. But if you can make this work in your market, holy cow, circle prospecting is essentially like an endless list of numbers that you or your ISA or anyone else can jump in and call and get in contact with and have conversations with, okay?
Quick question for you, Gus.
Yeah, go for it.
From one of the attendees, are we okay or legally able to send cold texts?
So that is a really good question. I think, again, not a lawyer, but if the person is on the national, federal, or local do not call list, I don't think it matters whether it's a call or a text. If they're on the do not call list, I don't think it matters whether it's a call or a text, or for that matter, ringless voicemail. There was a big case that Keller Williams lost recently because a ringless voicemail counts as a call as well, right? So again, don't quote me on that. I'm not a compliance expert, but for matters of the DNC, it doesn't matter. I think the cold texting can get you in trouble as much as a cold call can, right? So that's
I think you
important to
pretty much
understand.
just need to put your information of who you are and then where you're working as well, at least in that very first initial text, to help with some of that compliance issues.
That's true, and you're probably right, Trenton. But I'm not probably not the best person to ask that. But yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you're gonna make sure you're compliant. All these things can be done in a compliant way. We have client all the tools, like doing this through a tool like RedX, GeoLeads, Mojo Neighborhood Search. They help you stay compliant, right? So where you can get in trouble is you're making a list outside of the systems and you're not filtering it properly. You're not then you can be uncompliant and and you get into trouble. Okay, so there you go. All right. So here's some case studies. You can check it out at your leisure when we send out the slide deck or checking these out. These are people that are doing exactly what I'm talking about, right? Getting deals from FSBOs, from expireds, from absentees, from circle prospecting, and from expired as well, right? So FSBO, expired, circle prospect, and absentee owners. Here's examples of these. Some of these folks use ISAs. Some of them do it on their own, right? So check it out if you're interested in how to make this happen, all right? Here we go. Last one. The last of my 3 ways, the top 3 ways to generate sellers, okay? So real quick, got about 10 minutes left. I'm gonna power through this. Options for seller lead generation. Now, typically, when you're generating seller leads online, you've got a few options. It's usually one of these 3. You're running a home valuation ad, usually on Facebook, Instagram. You've got a lead magnet ad on Facebook or Instagram. Or you're buying a Google keyword, Google pay-per-click, on how much is my home worth? Or how can I sell my home, right? That's usually the 3 options in general, the 3 kinds of ads that we see for seller-focused lead generation, okay? There are some challenges to that, all right? If you've ever done this before, you know what I'm talking about. They tend to cast a very wide net because any homeowner under any circumstance wants to know how much the home is worth. Like anyone, right? That's a very wide net. The conversion rate tends to be much lower for these kinds of leads, for these kinds of ads. And the cost per acquisition, like the cost to generate the lead, is through the roof because, for example, for Google, I ran this test in one of the markets that I know well, San Diego, California. It was $5 to $10 per, not per lead, per click, okay? Per click. So one person's going to click on your Google keyword, they're going to go to your website, they're going to browse it, and they might not even register as a lead, okay? So you can imagine the cost that it takes to generate one qualified lead from a process like this, right? So also another experiment you should do in your own market, go to incognito mode or go to hidden mode on your browser and do a Google search for how much is my home worth and find who's advertising for that, right? Do a test. Because I found the top teams in the country weren't running any of these ads, just so you know. Now, I'm talking about 500 transactions a year, 1,000 transactions a year, 5,000 transactions per year. They weren't running any of these ads. And I thought that was interesting because I look at the top teams in the country a lot. I worked for a lot of them, okay? So I thought that was interesting and I wondered why, okay? So check it out. This was my hypothesis, right? Oh, and by the way, if you looked at the top teams in the country, I'm talking about the Robert Slacks, Robert Kanskis, I mean, the mega teams in the country. What ads were they running? They weren't running these ads. They were running ads focused on buyers, okay? So, okay, that's interesting. So this is the hypothesis. If every single home seller is a buyer, that's almost universally true. Not 100%, but almost universally true. Not every buyer is a seller. That's absolutely true. But almost every seller is a buyer. Almost every seller is a buyer. The opposite's not always true, okay? The internet is really good at showing us things from the buyer's perspective, which is homes. This has not changed I'm surprised it hasn't changed almost at all in the last 20 years. This is what we were doing 20 years ago. This is what when my wife got into real estate about 15 years ago, this is what they were doing. And this is what we're doing right now. The internet is great. It's showing people pictures of homes, how to see homes, lists of homes. It's really good at that, okay? We ran an experiment. Okay. We did this for free. We were so interested in proving this right or wrong. We did this for free. We told about a dozen of our clients, right? Well, I offered to everybody, but a dozen people took me up on it. We said we'd run their Facebook ads for free in their market locally so we could collect this data, okay? We used a buyer-focused campaign, and we qualified each lead with a very simple criteria. Do you own or do you rent a home? It was obvious they were interested in buying. What wasn't so obvious, are they an owner or are they a renter, right? And we ran this for 60 days, all right? This is what we ran. These are the highest converting kinds of Facebook ads you can generate. List of homes, single property, carousel ad of homes. You see the common thread there. Homes, homes, homes. This is what people want to see. The hypothesis here is every seller doesn't wake up thinking, I want to sell my home, okay? That's usually not the motivation. They're thinking about the next property. They want to move into a new home. That's the motivation. Selling the home is the drag. Buying the new property is the motivation. That's the vacation. That's the destination, right? A lot of folks want to try and get them on the seller end of that equation. It's possible. It can definitely work. It just takes a lot more time and a lot more money to generate those sellers, qualified sellers from the internet. It is much more efficient, I feel, to generate buyers, because with buyers, you're going to get both, okay? Because you're going to get both. Some buyers are renters. That's true. In this market, though, with prices the way they are, the best buyers are going to have a property they're going to sell. They're going to cash out that equity and going to put it into a new property, okay? I like talking to buyers that are also sellers. Those are great, okay? Well, here are the results. We got about 3 minutes left. We generated 706 total leads across 12 markets in the US and Canada. And this was like St. George, Utah. It was Los Angeles, California. It was and everything in between. This was like in Canada, in the US, different cities, small and large. 365 leads indicated they had a home. They were a homeowner. They had a home to sell. 51% of leads, okay? So, folks, that's the punchline. That's the result that we got from this. My recommendation to you is to run, if you want to generate seller leads online, using seller-focused ads is the hardest, most expensive way to do it, okay? So much so that the top teams in the country don't run these ads. They don't, okay? However, the ads they do run get them both, the buyer and the seller, for a much better price, even considering that only 50% of the leads are going to have a home to sell. They're like, that's fine. Some of these teams just toss the buyers and just focus on the buyer sellers, right? That's the kind of market that we're in. Inventory, inventory, inventory. Okay, folks, that is it. We got like 1 minute left. Special offer here. If you want this slide deck, okay, I will give it to you. Send an email to info@powerisa.com. Trent, can you type that in there in case it helps people?
Already doing it.
Oh, perfect. Love it. Info power. And this is important. Without this, it won't work. The subject has to include 3 ways sellers with an S at the end of both of those. Okay. 3 ways sellers. 3 ways sellers. Okay. You'll be able to check out this recording on YouTube within a few days, right, Trenton?
Jake, he'd have that one, but I would say within the next couple of days, maybe with Labor Day.
Oh yeah, that's true. So probably sometime this week we'll see the recording on YouTube. But you can get the slide deck and start making this actionable today by sending that email. If you send an email right now, I think it's already set up. It'll automatically respond to you guys and send you the link to the slide deck, so you can just go in there, go to town, and start implementing these strategies, because we need inventory in this country, in this market. Be part of that solution, and let's get some people to list their properties. Okay, that's pretty much it, folks. Thank you so much for attending today.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Like you mentioned, email info@powersa.com, subject line 3 ways sellers, and we will send you over this presentation. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us, and have a great day and a great weekend.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks.